In this video, we got a little friend here. We're going to choke him to death. I've wrapped him in one of my gis so you can have a look at a few different things in terms of understanding a choke. And the reason why we have this anatomical model here is so that you can understand what's actually going on in a slightly different way. So what you'll see here at the front is that we have a lot of different structures. There's sort of behind here is where your airways are and all of those kinds of things. And what you'll see is that we have blood supply going up the side of the neck here, and you'll see that on the other side as well, but here you'll see all the muscles on this end. And you'll see how this blood supply actually comes often, sort of from the ribs and the heart area and then coming up into the brain. And that's really what we want to make sure that we, I suppose, really interrupt with a choke. Whether I do a choke, maybe I do a cross-collar choke, from the back. I might do a cross-collar choke from the front. Whether I do, a rear naked choke from here, I do a single arm choke, in this kind of fashion. Whatever I do, the principles of a choke, they are identical. And what we have to remember here is that we're not interrupting the airway or the blood flow. We want to maximize both of them so that the person, taps out or faints, whatever it might be. And mostly, it would be the tapping out kind of component. So in this instance, what we have to remember is that the neck sits on top of what we call the thoracic spine. The thoracic spine is your upper back, where your shoulder blades and so on and so forth are. And unless I can control that as an opponent, it's going to be very hard for me to control the neck. So let's say that you have someone's back as an example. It's really, really important that you control the arms, the upper back and the hips before you can secure a really good and effective choke. And remember guys, a choke becomes tighter and tighter and tighter as time goes. It's not one of those things where you just snaps, like an armbar as an example, or an elbow lock. So it's really important that we understand that. And another thing that you have to understand is that deep within the sort of tissues on the side of the neck here, you will see that, and you won't see it here, but what you need to know is that there are different kinds of receptors that sense changes in pressure and all of those things, and they tell your brain, they're kind of messengers telling your brain that, hey, danger is going on. And that's the kind of initial thing and reason why people tap. You won't choke before it's taken some time. It is uncomfortable, but you won't choke. And what actually sends you to want to tap and get out of it is simply that these receptors on the side of your neck are telling your brain that you are in danger. And those are a couple of things that we want to take advantage of. Cool? So let's look at the principles of a choke. And I'm going to turn this guy around as we go. So as I'm here, let's say we're going from the back. What you need to understand here is, when we're doing a cross-collar choke, we have both of the collars putting pressure on either side of the neck, but also the back of the neck itself. And we also want to be able to block the airflow coming to the front. So here, one thing that we really have to remember is, as I'm getting my grips here, whatever way I decide to do that from here, I need to make sure that the space around this person's neck is disappearing. So that's what we call the 360-degree principle. So as I'm stretching both of these collars, I want the collar behind his neck to tighten up. I want it to stretch and get really, really tight along all the muscles, all the blood vessels and arteries and everything else, and all those receptors inside his neck to make him uncomfortable. If I do a single arm choke from the back, nothing changes. Of course, this is hard to see because he's not, a normal person. But as I'm squeezing here, I need to make sure that I'm reinforcing this choke with my head that I'm blocking 360 degrees as much as possible, and as I'm moving back to finish the choke, I'm blocking the front, both the sides, and the back of the person's neck. That principle doesn't actually change if I do a rear naked choke as an example. So let's take this off. So, just to kind of show side on, when I'm here, I reinforce, I go behind. When I'm doing a rear naked choke, of course, we have the front covered. We definitely have the other side, on the side of my right arm. We definitely have this side covered. And I can put pressure on the back of his neck with my other arm as well. But for me to reinforce this choke, just as an example, I need to shrug so I create space for me to squeeze even harder. Because if the person goes down with the neck, that's a part of the defense. So I want to shrug up, so I lift up, pull the neck apart. That's going to make the neck thinner, and it's going to make sure that there is more space for me to wrap tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter around the person's neck at a 360 degree angle. And there are many small tips and tricks you can do here and there to reinforce a choke, such as using your hips and your head, and you can use your fists and grips in different ways. But as an introductory kind of quick video to understanding how to choke people, these anatomical jiu-jitsu lessons are really, really worthwhile. So here, remember, we want to interrupt the blood flow, and primary blood flow to the neck actually goes up on either side. We want to interrupt the airflow, which is at the front, and we want to put enough pressure, on the side of the necks and around the neck so that these receptors in the neck freak you out and they make people want to tap. And from here as well, we need to remember and understand that the more I can control the upper back, the better my chances are going to be for a successful choke when it comes to dealing with my opponent. These are some of the very, very basics when it comes to understanding how to choke people anatomically. We are going to go in more depth, as time goes and these videos, become more and more thorough. But if you have any questions, you put them below and then we will answer them.